Good evening. Welcome to Counseling 101 with your host, Miss Durak. Today we'll feature our special guest, Christian Marhenke. Welcome, Christian.
Glad
How
to
are
be
you?
here. I'm doing good.
I'm glad you're here. How are you today?
I'm great. It's been a great day.
I'm glad.
Yeah.
The weather was like really warm today.
Oh, great.
So nice. Can't complain, you know?
No.
So where are you from?
I'm from Fresno, California. It's located, if you look at California, you could poke it in the center, and that'd be it in the Central Valley.
That's so awesome.
Mhm.
I wish I could live in California. I heard it's sunny there every single day, so
Yeah,
no
real
rain.
warm.
hmm So, what was your life like growing up? If you had to describe like as a kid to like now before you moved to Valpo.
Yeah, absolutely. So I can say that my life was like really positive average, I would say. I grew up, both my parents were elementary and high school teachers. We had very stable income. Lived in a nice part of town, went to church every Sunday, had a great time, and then went to all the nice schools that my school district in my town could offer me. Real great experience. And so that happened really well all the way up to, let's say, 5th grade when I transferred to a new school in pursuit of a better education. This elementary school was promising better opportunities for students. So I went there and I kind of noticed I didn't really fit in very well, but I still powered through. Ended up going to this middle school, and it was 7th grade to 12th grade, and it was where I really got a different experience for the rest of my life. One where it was different, it was new, where I was able to learn in a different environment than where I learned for the rest of my life.
So what happened from 7th to 12th grade? 12th grade, is that when issues started occurring or?
That's where like my life and my viewpoints on life kind of turned upside down. I definitely was up until 7th grade dancing with fairies, I guess, having the time of my life, no problems in the world. And then 7th through 12th grade, we get put, the way our school system worked was it was a magnet school. So kids would be bused all around the town to this one specific school. And those were generally the smartest kids, as they would put it. And I was one of those kids. It was an honor for me to be one of those kids. And this school was plopped in the center of a community that was deprived of many things in life. It had food deserts, it had poverty, a large homeless rate, and it was very, it was a ghetto in itself. And so it was interesting to be from such a, for lack of a better term, I guess, pampered in a way kind of lifestyle to going to this way more rougher, more edgier middle school and high school. And so that really changed things for me, where I got to learn and experience things that aren't as great, that aren't what you would expect to find in life.
So people that lived in like the rough neighborhood around there, they were able to go to the magnet school even though it was only for smart kids?
Right, that's the thing. It wasn't only for the smart kids, it was also for the people in the community. The idea was to bring the smart to them, or the higher education to them, if you will. And so on paper it looked really great, but it caused many problems of diversity, of hate towards each other just because of their status, and there was a lot of fear, and it was an interesting way of integrating it into the education system.
Gotcha. So when did you notice that like weird things started happening?
Yeah, absolutely. I can say lifestyles I noticed were very different for my friends. I noticed I had a habit of being friends with anyone I could meet. It wasn't hard for me to make friends growing up, and I always valued my friends. And so I got to know my friends as close as I could, and I got to learn things about them. And so I would learn like horrible things that they think are normal. Things like, like, oh, I didn't get to eat dinner today. Oh, the school food is horrible, but it's the only thing I'm eating today, so I'm happy to have it. People living in lives so unlike my own, where they're like, they don't want to leave school because they know it's a safer place on the campus of school than going back home. And so I got to notice these things, and I'm like, well, I always loved going home. It's always safe for me. I had to take a bus half an hour away on the freeway to get to where I lived. I was so far out of their lives in terms of outside school, I didn't understand it. And it was always interesting. And I started to notice the last 5 minutes of the bus ride, how the environment changed. The glass in the streets broken, the billboards, buildings shut down or dismantled, police on every corner, It was a much different area than where I grew up and was raised.
So were kids like homeless and stuff?
There were some kids homeless. There were kids without parents. There were kids whose parents refused to get a divorce because they couldn't afford to. There were kids that were unloved. There were kids abused. A friend of mine had to, when he was 16, he committed a crime that he had to go. His father was abusive and he couldn't take it anymore, and he just had to go to jail because of it. It was real unfortunate. But for us, at the time, what could have been very traumatic for many people was we kind of expected it. We kind of knew it was coming. It wasn't like, it was upsetting, it was solemn, but it wasn't like, let's rip the tablecloth off the table, this is outrageous. It was almost expected.
So when did you start to notice that like the bullying and like harassment and stuff, or the situation that you experienced, like when did you start to notice that like you were getting mistreated?
Yeah, for 8th grade especially, being where I went to school, being in middle school and high school, being white was a minority of itself. And that was kind of eye-opening for me personally.
Did they look at you differently?
They did, yeah. It wasn't like, it was privilege. They looked at me and saw white privilege. And it was hard for me to understand. Now, I won't deny, I am privileged. I lived a very happy life, and I've lived a very stable life, but it's not much of my control as it is for them to get the life they're given. And so it's what you do with your lives that's important.
Yeah.
But in 8th grade, you don't really understand it's what you do. So you get some hate, you get called slander. You understand that people won't like you because of your race, and that's a hard thing to understand. But it's also something that they learned to understand when they were younger than me. And so it was very interesting.
So you couldn't really blame them because that's just what they were taught to like think?
Yeah, in a way I blamed them. As I'm just a kid, they don't like me.
Because of them being judgmental?
Yeah, there was a little bit of judgmental, but at the end of the day, through the years, I've learned to stop blaming them, to stop judging, and I've even gone out and apologized, like, I'm sorry I hated you for not liking me. I understand why it was the case. No, and of course they would receive back, I'm sorry I hated you because of your privilege. It's like, you obviously understand a little more. But I would say that the conflicts inspired me to promote change, to change the system.
So you changed the system?
In a capacity, I did. When I went to after 8th grade, I spent a lot of time reflecting over the summer. And by the time freshman year came around, I was like, I was it. I had enough. A lot of my friends, it was a lot of like white people staying together and everyone else doing their own thing. I separated from that. I wanted to do my own thing. I wanted to be a leader. I wanted to show that what you can be is whoever you want to be with whoever you want to be. So I became an active member of the band. I did sports. I did water polo. And I tried my best to show equality regardless of anything that we could do there. And I really feel like by senior year, I was very successful in that endeavor.
That's really great that you spreaded yourself out like that. What other like bullying happened, I guess?
Well, there was a lot of bullying because of stereotypes or lack of a stereotype. If someone wanted to break the norm, they did get punished for it verbally. And at our school, there was a lot more trends that were more violent than normal. Physical attacks were more common than I believe at most high schools, where for us we could have them twice a week, and sometimes no one would get caught. Other times it was like every day, or every break, lunch, there'd be a fight of some kind, or a backpack would be smashed into some kid's head.
Yikes.
It was crazy stuff, and it was just because they weren't going with the flow, for lack of a better term.
I kind of, I had a similar situation because I went to Joliet West High School, and that was kind of like in a ghetto area, but I was in the nice part of town, so I went there. Yeah. So I didn't really like experience the ghetto in my own life, but white was the minority at my school as well, and we experienced a lot of like fights, a lot of like drugs and stuff like that. So I kind of get where you're coming from in a way, but not to that like serious degree, because it wasn't like it was around like broken in like businesses and glass everywhere like that. It wasn't that bad. You know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Fresno downtown especially, it was known for having a lot of problems. Back when I went to high school there, they didn't have a police station in the area. Now by senior year they did, and a lot of things have improved. But there was a time period where
a lot of it was gang motivated or gang related in some capacity or another. Something happened because someone said so, or there was violence because someone wanted violence. And there's very little we as high schoolers or middle schoolers even could understand appropriately and be aware of the situation.
Gotcha. All right, we will get back to this after the break. Sorry, I looked at the wrong camera. Welcome back to part 2 of Counseling 101 with Christian Marhenke.
Yep.
So we kind of left off on like your situation at your school and the bullying and harassment you encountered and all the awful names you were called and stuff like that. So I would just like to ask, like I want to go into more like in depth on like this whole situation. Kind of like just like how emotionally you responded to it and how you felt.
I could tell you about a situation where I was just in class and there was a substitute teacher, and a student took advantage of the substitute teacher by coming up to me in the middle of class and saying, "You're racist because you're white, because of your race," and then was like proceeded to storm off and was very upset at me.
At you?
At me for who I am, and I guess I couldn't really understand.
The teacher said this to you?
No, the student.
Okay.
There was a student, and because the teacher wasn't there, the student took the opportunity to. So I should have clarified that. But that really put me in shock because I didn't really understand what she meant. I didn't even really know her, so it was really embarrassing. But I ended up, it was really funny, the substitute teacher, he studied like racial equality, and like that was his thing before becoming substitute teacher. So he sat us both down and he had this long discussion with us. And
that's hilarious.
It is. It's so funny. Perfect timing too. And it kind of helped us like understand like what name calling is and what we're doing to each other and what we're saying and what really matters. And all that really matters to me and what ended up mattering to her at the end is that we're here, we're alive, and we just got to keep things going straight. I had nothing against her. She ultimately didn't really have anything against me. Just some grudges that weren't in our direct control, but we could affect positively against by doing things that could break the system, dismantle it in any way we can.
Okay, so how did that affect you, like, emotionally?
Yeah, so emotionally it was traumatizing. I mean, I obviously remember that moment. Even though we created a solution, it was still very traumatizing. You don't expect to hear that from a peer. It definitely was disheartening too, to understand that.
What did she call you exactly?
Well, she called me racist because of my race alone. Because I'm privileged, I'm racist due to my privilege. And so I never thought of myself as racist. I really worked towards not being racist, working on equality. And so that was something that really traumatized me. And then emotionally, it disheartened me because I know that multiple people thought like her on that matter. And I know that there have been things that my race has done that have been very bad towards other people. And so it was something like, what can I do in my community, at my school, at home, in the future that can help break stereotypes? And that's kind of what I kind of grew up learning to love, was breaking stereotypes like such. So yeah.
Gotcha. So that taught you how to break the stereotype and be different from like what people were thinking of you, basically.
Right, exactly. I try to make it in my value life, and I find it very healthy for me and exciting for me to break stereotypes in any small way I can. One of my favorite examples that I get so much heat for, and it's so simple. Women like to grow their nails out. They like to paint them, like to decorate them, but they like to keep them real long and elegant. And I thought, well, that's a very female thing to do. No man really does that. They can paint their nails, but they almost never grow them out or never have long nails. Well, I want to do that. So I grew out my nails. I kept them really clean, kept them real natural. Sometimes I painted them, but most of the time I wouldn't. And I'd get all this heat from it, even from my parents. Like, why are you doing that? Cut your nails. They don't look good. I'm like, why don't they look good? Like, if women can do this and they call it beautiful, why can't I be called beautiful on the nails? And so I just wanted to fight it in that aspect. And, like, don't get me wrong. It's not because of, like, any preference I have towards life. Like, I consider myself a heterosexual white male. Like, I have a lot of privilege just because I'm labeled as those few things. But I still want to find my small battles, find my small stereotype breakers that I can when I can. And it's the small things that are worth fighting for, too.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting that you did that. Like, it's kind of like, I don't know, it's very like forward minded. I feel like very mature of you to like see through like those stereotypes and like do that and like test the waters, you know? Like it's rebellious, but it's like super smart, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't easy to get to that mindset. I would reiterate. Like I had to walk through fire, and I had to get burnt. I had to go to a place to show me, like the problems of not breaking stereotypes. If we just follow our stereotypes in society, people will suffer because that's their stereotype, is to suffer, and that to me is not cool and unacceptable. So we got to break things where we can, where it doesn't affect other people, and then eventually we can break things to the point where the betterment of individuals can become more reality than it is now.
And it's not good too because it limits people's opportunities and chances. Like basically it's like saying, oh, a guy can never paint his nails. Like if a guy like truly likes to paint nails, he can't. Because society looks down upon it. So
I mean, I made it intentional for my favorite color to be pink just because that's a girl's color. And I'm to be honest, it's no longer my favorite color.
So you intentionally made it your favorite color,
I intentionally made it my favorite color
rebellious?
because I knew that people would be upset about it. And I knew that there was no legitimate reason in my head that they should be upset about it. Because at the end of the day, what does it affect you that my favorite color is pink? How does it affect you that I have long nails? It doesn't affect you. And so why do I have to stand for it?
But you did it purposely to see people's reaction?
I did it purposely to show how ridiculous some things can be. And also it was fun. I enjoyed doing it. I still enjoy doing it.
So you're trying to like break stereotypes in a way too.
Yeah.
Like saying like screw these stereotypes, you know what I mean? Like you're just kind of battling against it, right?
Yeah, I'd say why do we have them? Like why we don't need them. And there's nothing wrong with following stereotypes either.
Right.
But it's about making it your decision.
Yeah.
That's what I'm for.
Pro-choice for that.
Well,
like that. In a way.
In a way, yeah.
For that situation.
Yeah.
Okay, so another thing I would like to talk about is like how did going to Valpo like environmentally change your situation and like make your life different?
Yeah, absolutely. So changing my situation, like I said, when I went to high school, being white was a minority. Obviously, going to Valparaiso University, it's in Indiana, Midwest. Being white is not the minority here. And I do remember the first time I was in a room of multiple white people my age. It was at Valpo for Focus, and I do remember being extremely nervous because I had never seen so many white people in a room at one time that were my age. Because I go to church, my church was very white, but they were older people, and so I didn't really relate to them as much. But here, it's like everyone here is very similar racially to me, and it really made me nervous. Yeah. So.
Why did it make you nervous?
Because it was something I'd never experienced before. And I know that I do not share the same values as every white individual. I know that I do not think like everyone else. And so that is something that I have to keep in mind when I interact with new people.
Because of your background?
Because of my background, but also because of what I believe, how I think of the world. I don't think of it as like follow stereotypes until you become successful. I think of it as break stereotypes until everyone's successful. And a lot of people don't understand that.
So you think that a lot of people here are stereotypical?
I wouldn't go as far to say that. I would say that my form can make them uncomfortable if I come out too strong. And so a lot of it that I believe is to show by example. I do things by example. I kept my nails long by example. I showed my favorite color is pink by example. And if they ask about it, I'll tell them about it. And that's how someone learns the best way. If they ask about it, is the most likely they will retain the information.
Gotcha. So, like going to Valpo and everything, like how was the transition for you?
I feel like the transition's been really great. I left my community in really good standings. I felt like I really changed a lot. When I left, COVID had struck, so I had a big quarantine moment where I wasn't really able to socialize. And then next thing I know, I'm going to Focus for Valpo. And then
it's a lot of socializing.
A lot of socializing there. And I get to learn and experience college life. And I get to see the opportunities here, the community here. If you wanted to do something here, it's not too hard to do. If you want to raise awareness, it's not hard to do at all. You can write in the newspaper. You can go to clubs. You can do all this stuff. And I really like how willing Valparaiso is to listen to people, to listen to what they have to say. And I think it's really cool and clever here. And that's what I really liked about transitioning here. I consider Valpo almost a platform for me to show by example my life and how The way I was educated through from 7th to 12th grade are really able to stand out here. And I could be one of a kind here and show the world and show the rest of the community how my experiences have made me who I am.
That's really awesome.
Yeah.
That like you think that, you're going to be able to influence people.
I really think so. I mean, I've already influenced a couple of my friends. I really am confident that I've put a positive light on a lot of subjects, and that I embrace people for who they are, not what they're seen as. And I really try to look for that in people. And I think it's shown so far.
That's really awesome. So do you have any like lingering issues from back home that like you still deal with on a daily basis or like often?
Yeah, like I said, back home's a little scary for some people. So a lot of my friends in high school, they go through things and they tell me about it when they can, or I hear about it in the news. So every once in a while, I'll find out one of my friends passed away because of some violent act that happened in the neighborhood, or a sibling of them, or like someone had drug overdose because they kind of were not forced, but they struggled with drugs because of their situation. So I struggle with the dark reality of home sometimes. Sometimes it's often when I hear news that isn't related to my family, it's often very sad news that I receive. And that's a hard thing to kind of realize when back home it's still very hard.
That is tough. So you have people like passing away from like drug overdoses and
well, it's a new thing every time, it feels like. But at the same time, it's not like, it's just solemn. It's not shock. It's just sadness and understanding of what they had to go through, and you just peacefully move on, I guess.
Jeez. Has your situation like gotten better since you've gone to Valpo and everything?
I would say absolutely. Here is a great opportunity for me to tell people who don't have to experience everything I experienced. I don't want people to experience what I experienced unless they personally understand the risks. But I didn't even understand what I was going through, so I wouldn't even suggest that. So I consider it really awesome that I'm able to tell people without them having to experience, and hopefully show them, like I said, through example, what it's like for me to kind of live my life and live the life the way I see the world.
But not to like force your beliefs on theirs and like make them experience it, but just like showing them like what you went through and like how you've changed and stuff like that.
Exactly. I live my life through my experiences. I show people my experiences, and if they ask about it, I would happily tell them. And so the goal is just to show them who I am and show them what has made me.
Yes, that's great. So your situation's gotten better. Why do you think it's gotten better since you came here?
It's gotten better in part because I'm distant from the previous situation, but also because I'm able to grow here in my new life. Valparaiso has offered me many opportunities. I've taken many of those opportunities, and I've created a new journey in my life, a life that is a little different than before, where I'm able to grow and experience things that I never would have experienced back then. So it's really awesome that I'm able to enjoy life a little more. Back there, I didn't plan my weeks. I planned day by day because I never knew what would happen the next day. Here, I'm able to have a very thorough schedule.
A stable lifestyle.
Stable lifestyle, exactly. And really take time to smell the flowers.
I'm so glad, like I'm so happy for you that you're able to have a better life here.
I'm happy too, yeah.
Well, this has been episode 1 of Counseling 101. Thank you so much for being my guest.
My pleasure.